First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate to this wonderful conference. I really hope that in the next future, when the global situation will improve, we will be able to discuss all our interesting research face to face. My colleague Maura Benedetti and I will present a study that focuses on hopes and fears for the future of different local communities. We believe that to foster the well-being of communities, it's important to understand the perception residents have of their own community. So the aim of this study is to investigate the perception of the future of their community of people resident in the city center of Rome, in the suburban areas of Rome, and in small towns in a region called Lazio, not too near Rome. We decided to analyze the different communities, since several previous studies have shown that perceived quality of life is related to the characteristic of place of residence. The community profiling technique we use for this project was developed by Seca and Francescato in the 1980s. And it's a complex technique that using an integrated subjective and objective data gives us a pluralistic interpretation of local problems of the community. It's been used for 30 years, both in Italy and internationally. In this project, 145 communities participated, 49% from the center of Rome, 27% from the suburb areas, and 24% from the provincial towns. So for this project, we have used the 8 profiles of the community profiling intervention, focusing on the future profile. So basically, we try to classify the fears and the desires that people had about their community's future in the profiles, in the main profiles that are known as 5 hard profiles and 2 soft profiles. The 5 hard profiles are the territorial profile that includes data regarding the territory, like physical composition, climate, natural resources. The economic profile analyzes the presence of different economic activities, divided traditionally in primary, secondary, and tertiary activities. In natural analysis also the employment rate in different sectors of the economy. The institutional profile concerns the political administrative organization of the community and the presence or absence of particular institutions, such as example, the police station, the prisons, the church. Demographic profile will concern the number of inhabitants, divided by age group, gender, schooling. Will also analyze migratory flows and decrease or increase of the population living in the area. The service profile is mainly divided in 3 areas: social, medical, educational, and recreational area. And the anthropological profile regards the history of community, the festivals, the traditions, the values. The psychological profile concerns the sense of belonging, the affective dynamics related to the community, the level of participation, the emotional security. You can find a more longer in-depth description of this profile on different publications, for example, the Nota Francescato, international publication that you can find if you want to see this technique more in detail that I just described very briefly. You can also email me, and I will give you more detail. So we analyze the expectation of the future of the people that live in the different territories, and we try to understand the main desires and spirits expressed of the members of the community using the community profile technique. People in the Rome center, especially for their desires, wished a better a better future for the community, especially regarding the green areas and less pollution. So they focus most of their desires in the territorial profile. So they come up. 34% of their desires were in the territorial profile, and most of the comments related to a greener city in the future. That's what they wanted. and some of the comments related to the territory profile regarding more transport efficiency, and more free parking spaces. And instead, the second profile, mostly mentioned by people that live in the Rome centers, regard desires related to living in a safer community. Safety has been shown to be an important contributor to mental well-being and is often identified as a key enabler for sustainable communities. The third profile, most frequently mentioned by people that live in the center, was the economic profile. People from the center desire more regulation of costs of houses and rents, and improvement in tertiary sector, especially longer store hours open for shops. In the peripheral area, the most mentioned profile regarding the desires was the service profile. People long for more recreational cultural activities and a higher quality of these. They believe the current level of cultural activities in the city in the peripheral area was unsatisfactory. Moreover, their desire to increase the number of schools, especially because according to them, in the peripheral area, there was limited only to certain categories of school. The second profile, most mentioned by people in the suburban area, is the territorial one. Citizens hope that the air pollution will decrease. They also wish for a better maintenance of roads and sidewalks. 15% of the desires are related to the psychological one profile, the economical profile, people that live in the peripheral area. The psychological profile, regarding this profile, most desires focus on increase of emotional security. And for the economical profile, the desires regarding instead improvements in some certain tertiary activities, such as banks and post office. In small towns, most desires involve the economic profile. People would like more job opportunities in the future, a revival of production activities, typical of the area, and also they would like more tourism in the future. 23% of the wishes of the people that live in small towns regard the service profile. People that live in small towns are often forced to move towards Rome in order to find places to meet and have fun. They hope that in the future, new recreational activities will be offered. 50% of the comments related also to different aspects of the psychological profile, such as social support, greater collaboration, and better social representation of the neighborhood, some of the wishes that people from a small town had, but also living in town, people living in towns hope to feel more emotionally safe in the neighborhood, but less often the people living in the other areas. What were the fears? People from the center tended to be more concerned from the territorial aspects, the worsening of conditions of pollution, environmental degradation, and bad maintenance and management of urban green areas is mostly feared by people of the center. The second profile mostly mentioned by people that live in the center is the psychological one. Was a widespread of fears. The people that live in the center are related to the rise of crime. And also people in the center are afraid that the values of the community unity will be lost. The third profile most mentioned by people that live in the center is the demographic one. People in the center fear in the future there will be an increase of non-European citizens in the territory of the center of Rome, and they're afraid this presence of immigrants will be a source of crime for the community and will contribute to the loss of security. In the suburban areas, the first profile most mentioned regarding the desires was the psychological one. People in the suburban area were especially afraid of the spread of crime and drug dealing, and they were also afraid of a sense of isolation, of fear of isolation, and the community would be worse in the future. The second profile, mostly mentioned by people in the suburban area, is the territorial one. 60% of the comments of the territorial profile refer to the fear in the future there will be less green areas and more pollution. 14% of the fears related to the anthropological profile. Most of the comments of the profile refer to losing the typical traditions of the neighborhood in the suburb area. In the small town, most of the fears of people that lived in one town focus on the territorial and psychological profile, 22% of the comments respectively. Among the psychological profile, most of the comments were related to the rise of crime, and the other comments were related instead to deterioration of feelings about their own town. They fear that people will not feel fulfilled in the towns and they will need to go away from town to have a satisfying life. With respect to the territorial profile, they fear that the typical territorial characteristics of good climate and green spaces will be lost, and there will be an increase of pollution and traffic. And 19% of the fears focus on the anthropological profile. 80% of the comments on this profile concern to possible loss of values, tradition, and history of small towns. So to conclude, from our analysis, we can see there are several similarities among the frequentities, but we can notice the respective desires of people. People from the center tend to focus mostly on intervention to reduce pollution and increase green areas and live in a safer city. In the suburban areas, the desires focus on services, especially in the culture area and the education area, and in more investments to decrease pollution and to invest in green areas. In small town, the profile mostly mentioned is the economic one. People would like more job opportunities and to invest more in artisan and local products. People would like to have better services, especially recreational ones. The main respect to the fears for all three communities, they're more similar in sense that the most profiles that are concern the psychological and the territorial one. When we analyze the fears, all three communities are concerned for the future of green areas and the possible rise of pollution and traffic. All three communities share the fear of high presence of crime, drug consumption, drug dealing, especially the peripheral area. So we can see that the community in which a person lives can have a large impact on their mental well-being. Overall, our study confirms the importance of a greener community for citizens of different territories. Several research have shown an association of health and greener spaces. A recent international study based on 143 research in 20 countries, Atoig, Bennett, and Jones, showed that there are numerous health advantages are correlated with living in green, near green spaces. Our study shows the importance of living in a greener area and also the importance of feeling safe in a community. We know from previous studies that people who live in high crime, low-income neighborhoods are at increased risk from many negative outcomes, such as, for example, depression, drug abuse. People that live in communities where they feel unsafe are more likely to have more poor mental outcomes than people that live in safer communities. Our study shows that it's important to promote on one side collaborative partnership to bring more resources to the school and to support community-based efforts to reduce gang activities and violence. And on the other side, our study shows that it's relevant to promote green programs that can improve urban improvements, such as creating more green areas, forests, bicycle lanes, walkways, and will also have a positive impact on the economy, creating new stable jobs. Thank you for your attention.